Yes,
Hello, we are live with Sing Space Chats, our weekly 15-minute chit chat with Sing Space coaches to ask important singing questions that get asked a lot. So we're often contacted with lots of questions. We all have them as singers going around our heads, and we thought it would be nice to check in once a week and to start to answer some of these questions. So today I'm here with Barbara Chans, who I think you all know. Barbara's a regular Sing Space coach. If you don't know Barbara, you should. So I was just talking to Barbara about summarizing her experience and realized that it's about 4 pages long because
no.
she is chocker with with expertise as a performer and as a coach and actually in academia as well. If we're just to focus today mostly on breathing, Barbara, can you just tell us a little bit about how your focus as a singer and a coach came to focus on the breath, which from your hoodie I can also see.
Well, I figured you were going to have the Sing Space hoodie, and so I said I'm safe with wearing another one.
Absolutely.
I'll wear my Sing Space hoodie tomorrow for the Bring and Sing, which is, I hope, also going to be about breathing a little bit.
I love that hoodie. I need that hoodie. So tell us, when did you move from being an opera singer and start studying breathing? Because you don't just work with singers, do you? You work with athletes as well.
Yes, athletes, and also now a lot of people who have kind of gotten dysfunctional breathing habits because of COVID or other diseases, and dysfunctional breathing habits can creep up on us so quickly when we spend some time coughing or, it's something that we do 20 to 25,000 times a day breathing, isn't it? And so if we have some periods of time where we don't breathe in a functional way, or in a way that may be functional in a certain acute situation of distress, that can be disease or some anxiety or something like this, if those periods kind of become a little bit longer, where we cough for 2 weeks, sometimes people cough for months after, for example, having COVID. And of course, this will then leave certain traces on our breathing coordination, on our breathing function, and will cause our breathing to become slightly dysfunctional. So I've been working with a lot of people who, yes, have been living that.
And do you think that the dysfunction usually comes from a physiological dysfunction that occurs because of the patterns changing because of the coughing? Or do you think it often comes with more of a psychological response to that dysfunction, where they start to become, the question we've got today is it learned or natural, almost too aware of something that previously was involuntary or autonomic or, natural, something we do in our sleep? Do you think that having that kind of catalyst of changing, having to have a challenge with your breathing can really get in people's heads?
Yeah, I don't know if we can make an actual practical difference between the physiology and the mechanics and the nervous state of it, because those are just so connected, right? So we can make a theoretical, we can start to have hypotheses and theories about why and which one is the cause, but in the end, what's going to happen is that just we are not going to breathe as efficiently in the situation as we could. And I think the big difference here is, do we have a good concept of what we want from our body breathing wise? So if I am a breathing aware person, I know what I want from my body, I know what's going on, and I have a disease and I cough, then I can already, while I'm coughing, I can take active I can create solutions, or I can say, okay, I know that this is a temporary state, but I know how to get myself back to whatever functional breathing I had before, because I have a good concept of what that is. If I never thought about my breathing, then I don't know if I had a functional breathing pattern before. And so I also don't know what to get back to. right? And
Mm.
it doesn't mean that, you know, if you never think about your breathing, that you're breathing dysfunctionally. Of course, there are, I mean, I really hope that most people breathe functionally, even though they do not think about it. But what I see in my practice is that a lot of people, because of different factors like stress, especially in our like performance world, you know, where we are constantly being bombarded with criticism, we have a lot of pressure, you know, of having to perform, having to be our best, having to look our best. A lot of psychological pressure that will have an impact also on the way that we breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times we already have, yeah, I don't know if I want to say dysfunctional is such a big word, but yeah, we have certain issues in our natural breathing patterns that as soon as those are being pushed out of balance, we're going to have a much higher likelihood of becoming dysfunctional, if you
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
me.
I absolutely hear you. And what do you think are some of the most common dysfunctions, like, that occur, and the first go-to fixes that can be really helpful for people?
So I think there are two things that are connected in a way, and that is a hyperventilation, meaning that we're breathing too quickly, you know, just too fast. Our breath frequency will be up there above 14, 15 per minute, up to something like 20 breaths per minute. And this will feel kind of normal to us.
Mm.
Um, but that has, again, consequences physiologically for our body, you know, for how well can we digest food, how, you know, how can we concentrate, all of those things. And then the other thing is mechanically. So many people will resort to breathing with their secondary muscles of respiration, like all the time. And so we're talking about neck muscles, we're talking about shoulder muscles. So those are muscles that are primarily there to stabilize our head, to move our head, to move our arms, move our shoulder. And yes, we need them sometimes to help us with breathing, but not in situations when the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles can shoulder the breathing by themselves. And so sometimes when we don't have like kind of like a clear idea of what we want from our
Mhm.
body in like a functional breathing environment, we don't even notice, you know, we don't even notice that we are kind of tensing our neck muscles when we're breathing. And especially for us as singers, you know, that means when we're constantly tensing up our neck muscles, that means that our larynx will also not be able to move as freely as it would be if those muscles were not being activated for breathing, which it's not necessary, right?
Yeah. And do you have, you say you can bring yourself back, and I feel like I can do this more and more with the more uh kinesthetic feedback that or sensory feedback that I gain through singing and through mindfulness. But if you're bringing yourself back to, the holy grail of breathing, and you know what to do, could you capture what that might feel like? I mean, is that, are you slowing your breath down? Is there any area in your body that you're specifically focusing on to do it personally?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely the sensory feedback that I get from my rib cage and just the
Mm.
movement of my ribs. Because, you know, if your ribs, like I really like to use my fingers as like to show how the ribs are moving. So if my fingers are my rib cage, right, then my ribs can move like this in their little joints that they
Mm.
have with the spine, like that. Okay. And that's the kind of movement that we're looking for in breathing. It's very easy, you know, even if like maybe the people are watching, like you can just move your fingers like this and you'll see it doesn't take a lot of energy. But if we are recruiting our neck and shoulder muscles for breathing, then basically we are going to do this. So the individual ribs are not the ones that are going to be moving, but we are using external muscles to basically move the entire structure of the rib cage up and down. And doing this, you will
Mm.
see it's just much more tiring because we have to move like an entire structure against gravity. Whereas here, if you're just moving your ribs, and it's really a very small movement, I mean, our body is designed in an absolute genius way. And so breathing is not supposed to cost us a lot of energy, right? Because we have to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And so if we do it in that really cost-effective way, moving the ribs ever so slightly, and of course using our diaphragm, as opposed to this very energy costly way of using the secondary muscles of respiration when this is not indicated, we basically build ourselves a huge obstacle. And so for me, something that I really like to do is kind of give a little hug to myself, because when you hug yourself and you kind of cross over your hands, I'll just turn around a second so you can see my hands, you kind of create a very nice possibility for yourself to get sensory feedback from your rib cage, right? Be careful not to raise your shoulder too much. Probably a little bit of it is going to be there. And then you kind of just try to inhale into your hands, and you can give a little bit of counter pressure, so that you can really feel that expansion. And this is the kind of sensory feedback we're looking for. The ribs are moving, but they're in their little articulations. Sorry.
It's amazing how much you can feel. More you can feel it if you get that external feedback as well.
Yeah.
The question today is breathing learned or natural? So, there's two sides to this question, I guess. Is one that, as far as I understand it, breathing is one of the only things that is both autonomic and somatic. So you can control it, but it's also involuntary, and it will happen all night long in your sleep without you doing anything. So it's involuntary or autonomic, like our heart rate and like the repair of our cells and like our digestion, which is just happening. Our body is doing it. But unlike digestion or cellular repair, we can actually control it and change it. So it's one of the only things that we have those kind of two paths towards. Now, this is really interesting when it comes to singing, and we have people who want to breathe the best they can, to sing the best they can, and we have this aspect of singing which is so fundamental. Everyone knows it. The first thing you say when you talk about breathing training is people start talking about the breath. Here we have something which is both involuntary and voluntary.
Yeah, that is a blessing and a curse. Because it so depends on the individual, on the person. If you have naturally a very functional, very well coordinated breathing, then that's going to translate into your singing as well. Unless, for example, you get somebody who tells you, no, don't breathe like this. You have to breathe in a different way, even though that might be less functional. But just because that person has learned, that you have to breathe like this or you have to breathe like that. And I'm really, really, really passionate about this. Breathing is something that is totally individual, and that we have to kind of find that concept that makes sense for ourselves. It's not something that somebody else can tell you, no, you have to breathe like this, you have to do that, you have to do that. It's just...
And sorry, and also that's both frustrating and also a massive relief, because I remember, I think if we were asking everyone to put their hands up at home, I think every single one of us has been told to breathe, that they should do something to do with breathing.
Right.
And even if that should, you've got to the point where you go, hang on, I'm with my voice 24/7. It doesn't feel right for me. Their words are still there. Some part of us is like, I'm a good girl. I'm going to do what I'm told. I'm 40 years old, but I don't feel like a grown up. So maybe that person was right. So there's always that part. And I remember saying to you, when you said this to our community, you came in to do a breathing class. And after the class, I said, okay, but really though, what is the way that we breathe? Like, almost like I didn't believe you, that you were saying there is only, there isn't one way. And you were just like, of course there is. It's an individual thing. You're going to have to increase your own feedback, your own sensory feedback, and you can understand it. But I'm not going to tell you. And I was so frustrated because I just wanted an answer. But I love that you can't give us an answer, because that is the truth.
Yeah. it's a process, right? It's like it's a bit this kind of whole finding yourself thing.
Mm.
And what I can give you, or what I think other like breathing teachers or singing teachers can give you, is like the anatomical information and the physiological information. And we can help guide you through that process of finding that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not going to come from push out your belly, hold your ribs up, like all that kind of stuff. I find it a little bit pathetic. I mean, sorry, that's like maybe a big word, but it's like pathetic tries of trying to describe something that happens, like that we feel in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe another person doesn't feel like that. And if we kind of try to tell a person, do that because that's the correct way, and they're doing, like, if I, for example, I tell them, inhale and hold your ribs open, right? That's something that we hear a lot, for like the support kind of thing, breath support kind of thing. Then, and like one person maybe will do what I feel like, and another person is just going to get super tense and kind of be like this, but the teacher said I have to do this. And no, it's so much more about trying to find out what you are and
Yeah,
what feels
yeah.
right to you, and ask questions. And I love it when people bring questions to me that I have no idea how to answer. Like I got a super question the other day, like, are there any breathing exercises that can help us cool down, like as opposed to warm up, like really our body temperature? Can we cool down our body temperature with breathing, like dogs would do, right?
Yeah, can we?
And
Because
I thought
yeah,
about it, but
yeah.
I still don't think we can, because as soon as we will start to breathe in any other way than just calm ventilation, we're going to activate more muscles. We're going to basically create more energy, and that's going to warm us up, because our body is designed in a way that, like, we do temperature regulation through our skin, and through via other processes. But it's such a great question, isn't it?
It's a brilliant question, and I think it highlights that breathing is part of such a complex system. I'm not going to go into, breathing in the brain, because I'd love to invite Heidi Moss to talk about that.
Yes.
But the idea that it's our brain controlling our breathing, and responding, it's to do with the cells in our body and how it's to do with everything. It's to do with our nervous system. It's to do with our mental state. And the idea that we can control one aspect of it is like trying to control, I think of it again, like the voice, like a partner in your life. You can't tell your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or whoever you're hanging out with, exactly how to be. You can just understand and work with each other. And I feel like our breath and our voices is all part of a long continuum of relationships in our lives that we can understand but not control. Well, listen, I mean, can you just leave us with, because this is fascinating and it's much too big a topic for 15 minutes. Can you leave us with your favorite one exercise when you're at your computer? Let's not talk, I know we're talking singing, but let's talk human. So you just, you're at your computer, you're working, you probably started to breathe a bit high and a bit fast. What's the one thing that you do when you kind of check in and try and bring yourself back to a more balanced, healthier breath state?
Again, for me, that goes really mechanically into my ribs. So it depends also maybe what kind of chair you're sitting on. But I really like to check in, for example, when I work on Zoom, when I can see myself singing exercises, whatever, I like to check in on my inhales, like check in on my neck muscles, especially talking, when we talk and we get a little bit carried away, then maybe sometimes it happens that we do this kind of inhales and we get a little bit tight here, and then it's just so great to just take a moment and just kind of feel the weight of your ribs, feel that hanging of your rib cage. Again, the self hug is a great way. Or a little bit like paradoxically maybe, but another way, a really great way to feel your ribs move is actually raising up your shoulders and like really high, like really blocking them like under your ears, because now what we have done is we have completely kind of used the muscles right here to their full extent of like doing something, so they can't help us breathe. And so now we take an inhale, and you're probably going to feel things around here, right? And we exhale, and we do it again. And with that exhale, we just drop the shoulders again. And now we try to feel the same thing in the ribs, but now with the shoulders down, because there are just so many muscles that can help us breathe, but they're maybe not the most functional in that situation that we're in. And sitting in front of a computer can really it can be stressful, and it can be, we're sitting in one position the whole time, and it kind of creeps up on us that we.
Yeah, it really does. Really does. Gosh, I think there's one more question, if I can keep you just for another 30 seconds.
Sure.
Do you think, so our question today was, do you think singing, breathing is learned or natural? If a baby is born breathing in a natural way, unless there's do you think there's a point in life when the transition starts to happen? Because do you think there's something, do you think there's a moment when it transfers? Does it come with consciousness? Because if you watch my cockapoo's on the bed, and my 18-year-old cat is here as well, and their breathing is entirely natural for them. They're not trying to do anything. So do you think that the time when it transfers into it being learned just comes with consciousness and self-consciousness?
Well, it also comes with position. In the beginning, we'll be like lying down all the time, right? And then once we get up on like sitting and then also walking on our 2 feet, this has an impact on just the entire alignment of our body. And together with that, yes, consciousness and imitation. We are learning through imitation a lot when we're small. And so we are going to also learn breathing habits from the people around us.
Yeah.
We're going to see how our parents are breathing. We're going to see how our teachers are breathing, and breathing is such an important way of communicating with others. It's such a huge part in nonverbal communication. And for example, our parents communicate with each other or with us in a way where, it's always like this. And there are those inhales with neck muscles, shoulder muscles present. Then, that is something that we will take over. Sometimes we see people and then we see their parents and they're like, whoa, you're talking exactly like your mom, Well, that will also mean that you're maybe breathing like your mom.
Of course, because if we're vocal learners and we've learned through mimicry, our vocalizations begin on the exhalation as we prepare for what we're about to say. So it makes so much sense. And that's a revelation to me. And I'm going to watch my family next time when they come for Christmas. I'm going to watch my mom. How fast is she breathing? Is she using her neck? Barbara, thank you so much. This was really fun. And I always learn so much from you. And we're so honored to have you on the Sing Space team.
Thank you so much.
Anyone wants to work with you, they can find you on your website. If you Google Barbara Tanze, you'll find Barbara. And have you got any other breathing courses or classes coming up at the moment?
Right now, I'm finishing up my 12 weeks breathing course for COVID survivors that some of the Sing Spacers are taking. So we're having a lot of fun with that. I don't know if I'm going to be running it again starting January. I have to see. But yeah, I'm super happy to help anyone who has just the feeling that there's something off with their breathing, or who struggle to get through lines, or who have questions, because they've heard teachers say, breathe like this, breathe like that, but it just somehow doesn't resonate with them. And they would just like to understand like how to translate them into their own kind of way of breathing, because nobody is like wanting to give you wrong information, but it's just sometimes that, you know, we just tell you what we've heard and we don't make that conscious choice of just saying, hey, you
Mhm.
figure that out, but I can help you to guide you, because it can be very time consuming. And
Yeah.
especially if you have singing lessons for, you know, doing certain songs and preparing for auditions, then maybe with a singing teacher, you don't always have time to go into the details and nitty gritty of the breathing.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be really helpful. And if anyone's got any questions now, put them in the chat now, because these SingSpace chats, I mean, they're only supposed to be 15 minutes. Sorry, we've gone over by 10 minutes. But if we're strict and we keep them at 15 minutes, then there'll be many more questions on breathing. You know, we can have a quick chat about the ribs. We can have a quick chat about, you know, different areas in the future. So if anyone's got any specific questions and we think that they would really apply to, you know, universally to our community, let me know, and then I can try and convince Barbara to come back again in the new year and we can have another chat about breathing.
Sure, or you come to the Bring and Sing on Thursday. I think that nobody has signed up yet, so you're like, everyone who wants to sing is still accepted.
Grabs. Nice. So Bring and Sing Thursday, 7:30, breathing focused work. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to sign off now. Barbara, I will see you soon. Bye,
Yes.
everybody. Questions
Bye-bye.